right, good afternoon and welcome everyone to this Brown Bag webinar for UC Master Gardener Program coordinators and academics, as well as UC Master Gardener volunteers. Today's presentation will be on best practices for social media managers, and we're joined by Melissa Womack, who's the communications specialist for the UC Master Gardener Program, as well as Dora Garay, who's the social media strategist for UCANR. This meeting is being recorded and will be posted to the UC Master Gardener Program YouTube channel in the Brown Bag Trainings playlist. So with that, I'm going to turn it over in just a moment to Melissa Womack, and Melissa's going to share some UC Master Gardener specific information, and then we'll go to Dora for some general content about UCANR's best practices for social media managers. I'll close out the meeting with some announcements and reminders for UCANR personnel. Melissa.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Melissa Womack, and I am the communications specialist at the statewide office for the UC Master Gardener Program. And I've been in this position since about 2013. And the main functions of my position is to support the communication efforts of the UC Master Gardener Program, which includes developing resources that celebrate our volunteers and our program impacts on our statewide blog, in our annual report, for fundraising and government relation efforts, and on our social media channels. So I'd love for all of you that are attending today to follow and engage with our channels on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. And you can easily find the statewide channels by searching at UC Master Garden. Or if you visit our statewide webpage at mg.ucanr.edu, the links go directly to our statewide channels. Next. First, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you to everyone that is attending, that's here, that's helped manage our social media channels over the last 18 or so months. 2020 was incredibly challenging, and I wanted to celebrate all that everyone in this room has done across the state to bring gardening information to the public. People were looking for gardening information. During COVID, we saw a boom in interest in gardening and people wanting to learn how to grow their own food and to beautify their spaces. And there was such a surge of interest in gardening. And I just want to say thank you to every program out there for just really being robust content creators and communicators during this time. We saw incredible growth, the largest growth our program has seen on social media. This is on Facebook, you'll see a 26% growth, and on YouTube, we've had a 55% growth in our followers or our views, which is absolutely incredible. I have an example here of one county, just one county and everything that they've produced, and that was San Luis Obispo. So shout out to Maria and her volunteers in San Luis Obispo. They created a video series to support their community on how to grow different vegetables, or how to just common gardening questions or topics. And you can see that the content was engaging, people are watching those videos, and it's been an incredible resource for their community. And this is just one channel, one example happening at a local county, and we multiply that across all 52 programs and all of the volunteer efforts, and the impact has just been incredible. So from Facebook events, Zoom trainings, website updating, Twitter accounts, I know how incredibly busy you guys have been developing communications and content for the program to support home gardeners and people just either with experience or just starting their gardening journey. And so I just want to say thank you for taking the time to plan your commitment to just put the content out there for the public. And so again, we are so grateful, and I just wanted to start off by saying thank you. Okay. We have a wonderful National Extension Master Gardener social media training resource. If you haven't seen it or you weren't aware, wherever you are in your journey along social media, whether or not you have a ton of experience or you're new, I think that this is a great asset to start at if you have a volunteer, or if you are a volunteer who's just thinking about maybe supporting a social media channel for a Master Gardener program. This is highly recommended for anyone that manages an account for a Master Gardener program in California. It covers a wide range of topics, like how to create good content, what images are okay to use around copyright, and admin account settings. So if you haven't already checked it out, we'll have the links at the end of the presentation, or we'll send out some links at the end of the presentation. This is a whole robust training that I recommend anyone with access to a Master Gardener account take. And we also have some resources that Dora will present at the end around ANR in the social media toolkit that she will share with links to those resources as well. And then one of the most important items that I wanted to touch on today, just because I only have a couple minutes, I wanted to leave a lot of time for Dora and all of her content, is the admin account settings. We've had a few instances over the last year where we've been locked out of accounts because a volunteer or program coordinator left, and they were the only person that had administrative access to a channel. And it is extremely critical, and it's actually part of our policy that more than one person has to have full admin access, and one of those people must be made one of the people that is made a full access or owner has to be a UCCE staff member or an ANR employee. And if you're in your county and you can't find someone as a secondary, just reach out to me, give me a call or an email, and I will help guide you through the process of finding somebody that can be your backup person. We don't want to create channels and not be able to get into them if something happens to a volunteer, or if there's transition, and then you have to start over. So that's just a friendly reminder, but a very important one about admin access and settings. All right. So I am really excited. This is brand new. We just started a Facebook group for peer-to-peer sharing for anyone that helps manage social media channels for the UC Master Gardener program. And the goal of the group is to connect and network with fellow Master Gardener volunteers and staff. I would love people to be able to share ideas that they have or events that they have happening in their county, posts that were successful or maybe some that didn't work. If you're experiencing a challenge, this would be a great network to write to and be able to connect with your peers. You can find the group, it's on Facebook, but we can cover all channels that you have or you operate. It doesn't have to only focus on Facebook content. You can find this group by searching UC Master Garden Social Network. The link is down below the picture. And there's going to be a prompt for 3 questions. One is just, are you actively managing a social media channel for the program? And then another question is to name your program coordinator, county director, or advisor. And the goal of this question is just to ensure that people that are requesting to join are actually active Master Gardeners and they're connected to a county program. So just be prepared that that is one of the questions, your coordinator name, your CD name, or an advisor name in your county. And we'd love to see you over there. So I hope you join us. And my final slide is a reminder about the importance of making our content more accessible, especially on social media. It is crucial that we follow accessibility laws on our websites and all of our social media channels. And by taking a few extra steps while you create or post the content online, you will help us ensure that our content is has equal access to information for everyone that wants to enjoy it. We have a full 1-hour brown bag recording that was done in January, and it is also on the MG brown bag playlist that Marissa mentioned on YouTube, and we will include the link when we follow up at the end of the presentation.
Great. Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me this afternoon. Just some advance notice, I might have to stop the video. My internet is a little unstable, but for now, I think we're going to go ahead and move on with me on camera. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I'm here to share some social media best practices. But before doing so, I have to say that I am a consumer of what you have to offer on social media. I'm constantly tagging my friends, my parents. I just moved from Seattle, Washington, where we're not really having, the water issues, the drought issues as we are in California. So it's just a different landscape for me personally. And your accounts are helping me kind of decide how I run my home. So I just wanted to let you know on a personal level, I'm a fan of your work. Next slide, please. This is, I'm Dora Gray. This is my email. I want you to have that because I'm going to give you a lot of information. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm available to help you kind of navigate this complicated, often complicated field at social media. I have been with ANR for almost 5 months now, managing the main platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and now we're starting Reddit as well. This is our handle. If you're not following us, please give us a follow or a like. I come from a background in journalism. That's where my career in social media started, actually. I was a reporter, then a producer, and starting, building online communities for television networks. And then most recently in the education field near Seattle, Washington. Next slide, please. So why invest in social media? Even if you're seeing that your reach or your impressions dip a little, the amount of social media users is bigger than ever. I want to share some numbers from a recent study conducted globally by Hootsuite. There's been 1 billion new social media users in the last 3 years. Social media users jumped by more than 13% over the past year, bringing the global total to nearly 4.2 billion. And the number of social media users is now equivalent to 53% of the global population. I mean, that's huge. Social media is going to evolve, but it won't disappear. Next slide, please. This is another significant finding in terms of where folks are going to search information. As you can see, social media networks are only behind traditional search engines such as Google, Yahoo. In terms of where folks are going to find information, they're researching anything from the environment, products, and this is where the opportunity lies for us in the way that we use text to format our content that could basically pop up in these search engines. I think the prediction is that in 10 years, it will be social media networks overpowering traditional search engines. Next, please. So how do you manage your social media so that you remain competitive? You start by creating an overall social media strategy. And I can actually present on this subject alone, but I wanted to introduce it to you in case you want to start thinking about, approaching the work you do with social media platforms in a more systematic way, right? So the first thing we do for a strategy is that we listen. This is what we call conversation mining. You get online and you listen to what is being said about your own brand, about your competitors. So go on to your Facebook, to your Instagram, to your Twitter, and search for keywords, right? Search for Gardener, so search for urban gardens, for example, and just pull up those conversations. Search hashtags, local hashtags for you, and just kind of see what the tone is. What are folks worried about? And try to kind of mold your content around those conversations. From there, we move on to goals. This is where you get specific. Based on what you've heard your audience say, you determine, if you want more attendance at an event, then you say, for year 2022, we're going to increase attendance to events by 20%. And you measure that by seeing if there's click-through rates. Check your click-through rate on social media. So you should be specific with that goal, and again, be precise. From there, we move on to developing your content strategy. This is how often you're going to post, what channels you're going to use. You don't have to be everywhere on social media. If Instagram and Facebook is where your audience is, stick to that. You don't have to be on Twitter. You don't have to be on YouTube, but this should be part of your plan. Just don't try the platforms just because everyone else is doing it. It really has to work for you. If not, you're just wasting your time. From then we move to the fun part. This is the engagement part. This is where you actually develop your content. This is where you go live on Facebook, live on Instagram, you pick the best pictures. And you know what? Not everything's going to work. You might have had a great idea on paper and it just doesn't work once you post, but then you get to reinvent it for next year. And again, this is what I look forward to, right? The engagement portion. And then from there, we move on to analytics. You want to measure what you did in the past year. I'm providing you with Excel worksheets for Facebook and for Instagram. I have them for the other platforms as well. from these platforms, stick them into this Excel worksheet. I already have the calculators there for you. And then you plug them into another sheet that I provided where you could see how for a year you're doing. Right? Where do you see those spikes in reach and impressions? Maybe it's a campaign that you ran and you want to make sure that you do that the following year as well. So again, it's just taking the approach of looking at the strategy as a whole.
Laura, we're losing
next slide,
your
please.
audio a little bit. I'm wondering if now might be a good time to disconnect the video. Awesome, thank you. And
Okay,
if you would just reiterate, you have a few Excel sheets that can help folks make calculations. Would you restate that portion of your comment?
Sure. I'm so sorry about that internet issue. But yes, I have Excel worksheets with the calculators plugged in there and instructions of where you go on Facebook, where you go on Twitter to get those to download the data, and then kind of plug it into these Excel worksheets. And then I have calculators for impressions, for engagement, etc. It's already there for you. I'm providing it as the set of links at the end of the presentation.
Wonderful. Yes. So for those who may be asking in the chat, we're going to do a link dump at the end, and then any links that we discuss during this presentation will be in the description box of the YouTube video when that goes live on our YouTube channel. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and advance the slide now, Dora.
Thank you. So we talked about, the research that you've done to create this strategy. But what is it that you're really trying to accomplish, right? I'm going to move through this a little quicker. But marketing is basically that one direction in communications where you put out an ad or a flyer, and you're not really trying to engage with the community, right? You just want to present them with information. Social media is the opposite. With social media, you're trying to build community around your brand. You're trying to serve a community. You're trying to build trust. And, that does come with risk because you're also telling them, join this conversation with me. Tell me how we're doing. And, but if you know what your brand is about and you're clear in communicating that, you're going to be fine. I like to use this funnel to kind of describe what we're doing right with social media. The first part is awareness. This is where most of your followers are. They're kind of getting to know you. They're not yet invested. They don't all move down to consideration, but a good portion move on to just take a closer look at your content, to really consider, Master Gardeners in Sonoma County, they have good info, but they're not yet taking action. Then just even a fewer amount actually take action. This is when you see folks clicking to an event or buying one of your products, and they're kind of, trying you out in a more serious way. From there, you come back to engagement. This is where even fewer of those that took action want to come back and engage with your product. They want to come back for a class. They come back and like your content, and they're more invested. And then we ended advocacy. This is your goal. You want your users to advocate for you. You want them basically to tie themselves in the social media universe, their accounts to yours. So this is when folks are sharing your content. This is where they come out and defend you if somebody's, not agreeing with what you're posting. And because they've really believed in your brand and because you've created that community for them. Advanced slide, please. So I'm going to go over some general best practices and then get a little bit more specific with Facebook and Instagram. I'm not doing Twitter today because I think most folks on this call are focused on Facebook and Instagram. So let's talk about the content creation part of that cycle that I was telling you about. And this is where, I'm going to give you some best practices that have proven to work in creating engagement. Let's start with how many times per day you should be posting. Take a close look, especially with Facebook, that your engagement is at least at 2% for each of your posts. If it's not at 2%, then you need to do something else. Maybe you're posting too often and you actually maybe need to do one a day. If you're posting once a week, maybe you need to post a little more often. So play with that. When is your audience online? This is especially important for Instagram. Instagram tends to have a lot of their audience in the evenings and in the weekends. Maybe you need to, especially for posts that you really want to engage folks in, try the weekends, in the evenings, but take a look at when your audience is online. That's important. Only about a third of your content should be self-promotional. This is across all platforms. Instagram's a little different, but let's stick to 1/3, right? And ask questions for higher engagement. Be direct. You have so much important information out there that asking questions about gardening, I think it's pretty easy, and folks will find that engaging. Just straight out, simple posts on Facebook, simple posts on Instagram, ask a question. This is an example of a post that we did for ANR's main Facebook page that did very well. It was us tagging KQED on an article they did. Again, I'm engaging with our community by sharing their content. And again, we have a lot of master gardeners on our following our main page, and it did very well. You know, I think again, it's that appreciation that it's not all about us. Advanced slide, please. I mentioned it before, engage with your online community. That's what social media is about. Like, comment, and share content from other accounts. You know, sometimes we think, well, I don't have time for that. I only have time to post. But my recommendation is set 5 minutes a day. And if that's too much, set 5 minutes a week on your calendar and say, this is my engagement time. Go onto your platform on behalf of the business, on behalf of the business account, and like and comment, you know, identify who your partners are in your specific community and constantly interact with them. Reply to your users in a timely manner. Even if you don't have the answer, you know you're not going to have the answer for another 2 days, let them know that you heard them and just reply and say, I'll get back to you. I want to show you an example from UC Master Gardener's main Facebook page. This is managed by Melissa. There's a lot of things here that went well and that speak to what I'm saying. This is a post that she shared on behalf of ANR's IPM program. So as you can see here, she tagged IPM. She kept the text pretty simple and straightforward, which we want for all of social media. And this is basically a study about homemade pesticides and the potential that they have to harm your health and damage plants, right? As you can see in the second screenshot, there was just a lot of engagement here. 23 comments, 63 shares, 93 likes. And Melissa did a few things that really resonate with me. First of all, she brought in IPM and said, hey folks, you're the experts here. My community is asking lots of questions. Some of them are actually a little upset because they don't agree with the study. Can you please help me field this, right? So yeah, you don't have to do this alone. Bring in the experts. And most that are online are going to help. And then she also, you know, reached out directly and said, basically, her message was, I hear you. I hear what you're saying. I hear your concerns. And our goal here is to provide as much information as we can. And that's what we're going to do moving forward. I think this is just such a perfect example of that. If you go back onto their page, I think this was maybe a week and a half ago, and you could see the entire post. Next slide, please. Okay, so take time to select your images. This goes for all platforms, but it's especially important for Facebook and Instagram. I don't know if you've noticed, but Facebook is looking more like Instagram now. And that's because there's a rumor that in a few years, they might actually merge the platforms. So Facebook will hide pictures that are not as good and are not as large. So just keep that in mind. And then use searchable keywords when writing text. For example, if you're talking about urban gardens, try to include cultivate, try to include growers. How do I find these keywords? I go on Google, and once I Google urban gardeners, it kind of pulls up articles, and you kind of pick at the words that they're using, because what this is going to do is kind of push your content up in this cyberspace universe. And so just be careful in you know, the wording that you use. And that's, like I said, just a good best practice. Go back and Google a phrase or something, and it'll pull up some other keywords for you. Next slide, please. So Facebook algorithms. Let's talk about specifically about best practices for Facebook for a little bit. In this case, an algorithm is basically how the platform orders the post and the content that's out there. So they will give preference to certain posts. Like I said, they'll give preference to shorter text. They'll give preference to bigger images, and don't use the word click. I know we sometimes want to draw people, especially for an event, to click on the link so that they can subscribe. Don't do that. Facebook will put it at the very bottom, I guarantee you. Shorter posts do better, 120 characters approximately. I know sometimes we do need to provide more information, but try to stick to shorter text. Don't overuse hashtags on Facebook. Hashtags are great for Instagram and Twitter, but not for Facebook. Try to stick to 2 at most. And go live on Facebook. Do how-to videos, show and tell. They don't have to be perfect at all. I mean, that's actually what social media is about. And with the pandemic, even news organizations who were used to broadcasting perfect videos had to rely on home videos, you know? So this is your opportunity as master gardeners to kind of show the work that you're doing. And don't be afraid to go live. This is an example. Well, I talked about this example earlier for ANR. Again, it did very well organically. I kept the text as short as possible. I used only 2 hashtags, and very importantly, I tagged our business. Our partner. Next slide, please. So, especially with the pandemic, hopefully improving and allowing us to do in-person events, I would leverage Facebook events by inviting partners to co-host and by regularly posting content on event page. This is an example of the hosts that I invited, the pages that I invited to co-host the Big Dig Day event for us. Basically, what this does is it helps you expand that event, because these hosts will then invite folks to attend, and you increase your reach. In addition to that, they're also allowed to start discussions on the event that give it, just bigger circulation. So really leverage Facebook events, especially as we start doing more in person. Next slide, please. I'm not sure if you've heard of Facebook cross-posting, but this is a good technique to kind of, it's a time-saving technique, basically. You use videos across multiple pages. You can cross-post an already posted video without having to upload it again. So what do I mean? I've actually provided a link for you all to follow instructions to how to cross-post. So let's say that you get together in this Facebook group that Melissa created and say, let's start creating something that pertains to everybody statewide, right? That could help master gardeners independently of where you are. And you, let's say Santa Clara produces the video. They put it up to their page. If you are given permission to cross-post, you can upload that video up to your page in a matter of seconds without having to have someone send it to you, upload the file. It's just an easier way of sharing material that could be used across the state. That's not just for your niche local market. Again, I provided the link to instructions of how to do this. Next slide, please. So let's talk Instagram best practices. 20% should be promotional content. The rest should tell your story. And what I mean by telling your story, that's what Instagram is made for. You want to talk about not only the work that you're doing, but who is doing the work. We want to see the volunteers. We want to see the program managers. We want to see the community members, the individuals in your community that are helping you do this important work. And that's, so keep the 20% to I have this event, take this course, buy this product, whatever the case is. The rest, just really events. I've seen folks
Dora, we just
kind of
lost your
upload
audio.
individual pictures.
We just lost your
Okay.
audio there again for a moment. Can you just reiterate the point that you were making about keeping the posts small but telling your story?
Yes. So can you hear me now? Okay, great. Yeah. So 20% of your post should be promotional. And what I mean by that is, you're promoting an event, a course, etc. The rest should tell your story. And I'm not sure if you heard this, but it's basically telling the story of your work, but also telling the story of the individuals that are doing that work. Use the carousel feature. This is where you put 10 photos in one post. If you're at an event and you're uploading photos, they're just getting lost in that algorithm. So give your content the best chance of visibility. So create those carousel posts, and they do very well on Instagram. And when you don't know necessarily how to write for Instagram, describe the image. That's kind of like the gold standard for Instagram. Describe what folks are seeing. That's kind of your go-to for the text. This is a post from Ventura County Master Gardeners, and a lot of things are going well in this post. Great image. The text isn't too long. They used a popular hashtag, and they describe what you're seeing. So again, pretty simple, and just rely on that when you have problem in terms of defining what content. Next slide, please. Use line breaks for hashtags. This is an example of that. You can see that there's 5 line breaks. Again, the algorithms do better if you do that. So you put your hashtags at the very bottom of the text after the 5 line breaks, especially if you have more than 4. Here I was having, I had one that just tied in the series for us, but again, that's just what I do because algorithms appreciate that. Use appropriate hashtags. Don't feel the need to fill your post with 20 hashtags. If they don't pertain to your content that day, don't use them. Don't include URLs unless they are short. So unless they are ucanr / fundraising, something that somebody could type in easily, don't do it. Folks get frustrated and they tend to kind of unfollow you as well. Dedicate a website that you could link your content to and then put that in the bio. And it just, I've seen that many of you have been doing that, but it's a good reminder. And use location feature. This is important, especially for all of you that have these local accounts. If you're doing work at a local park, for example, put that location. If somebody's looking at all the feeds and all the content for that specific location, your content is going to pop up. So really think about using the location feature. Next slide, please. Leverage Instagram stories. I can't emphasize this enough. Some folks are not, are just not going on the wall anymore, and they're going straight to stories. So really try to do your best to use this feature. If you go live or you do video for Instagram stories, they're best for behind the scenes, how-to content, and announcements. Use the mentions feature to connect with others. So for example, tag, if you want us to possibly share, tag UCANR so that we're able to see that story. And try to go live at least once a month. Again, it shouldn't be a huge production. Make it simple. Just visualize what would folks want to see. If I were on Instagram as a user, what would I want to see? And, and try to go live, like I said, at least once a month. I'm also providing a link to an app. It's called Threads by Instagram that you can use to go live. This is the one that I use for this takeover that you're seeing here. It basically provides the captions for you. You don't have to go back and worry about that. And you also don't have to give the password, your Instagram password, to whoever's doing, let's say, the videos for you. Let's say you want a youth or a volunteer that's really new to your group to do an Instagram takeover or provide you with videos. They sign on to Threads, and then they download those videos and send them to you, and then you upload them to the business page. This is a free app and it's extremely useful. Next slide, please. So how do you actually create the compelling content, right? First, I can't really recommend this enough. Establish an editorial calendar. This is going to help you visually see if you're using original content versus curated. If you're using too much original content, then you say, okay, you know what? I need to start sharing. What's promotional content? If it's all about events, you know, you need to go back and share some partner content. It allows you, again, to visually see what's coming up. I have a calendar that I love. It's called Teamup. That's the one I use. It allows you to have 8 different calendars under one account for free. I'm also providing that link. You can go in and just plug in what you're doing. You can go back to last year's calendar and see, you know what, for this event, I did all of this content. What am I going to do this year, right? It's just very useful to kind of keep you organized. And then also research similar accounts. Do they have more engagement than you do? What type of content are they sharing? You know, we don't have to really reinvent the wheel each time. Just take a look what other local accounts are doing on Instagram or what other counties are doing. And you might come up with some good ideas for your specific community. Next slide, please. So very key component of, and I know I've mentioned this several times, but of creating compelling content is the video component. And, you know, I've had folks ask me, but, you know, it's so time consuming, and especially because I have to do one for Instagram and then one for Facebook and maybe even one now for Twitter flurries. And really, again, just keep it simple. If you go into Ventura County Master Gardener's page and look down, this is 6 days ago. This is actually a video that I can't play here, but they just kind of show you what they're talking about in the text. In video, it's short 60-second video. It's so well done. It doesn't have to be too long, but it accomplishes what it needs without just doing an image, right? You could do platform, like I said, platform takeovers, day in the life of a volunteer, etc. And again, feature individuals with compelling stories. Folks on social media right now want to be able to relate to the human aspect of what we're doing. So again, feature your volunteers, feature the youth that you're working with. I posted not too long ago, maybe 2 months ago, a story about a master gardener who unfortunately got poisoning from one of her plants. I think this was from San Diego. And I can't tell you the amount of people, first of all, the engagement was incredible, but the amount of folks who were messaging us, even on private message, saying, is she okay? You didn't really make that clear. Can we make sure that she's okay? I mean, that just goes to speak to the human aspect of these social media communities. So the other one is create infographics. This is not necessarily easy to do, right? It's time consuming, but infographics do so well, especially on Facebook. This is an example of basically A&R's best performing post organically. 250,000 people reached, 11,000 of organic engagement. This was shared, I believe, over 200 times. It's, again, of course, we were able to kind of monopolize on wildfire season, but we put the information into this infographic. Of course, like I said, they are a little bit time consuming, but I provided a link to CANVA. That's what I use to create infographics. Some of you might already be using that, but CANVA is a platform to, you know, basically create graphics, infographics, presentations, and they have some already ready to go templates where you just kind of plug in information. I highly recommend that you explore that. Next slide, please. stories. The Instagram features are pretty endless. I provided a couple examples here. You could do polls with the information you have. You could ask your audience to ask you a question. I think one of the biggest assets A&R has as a whole, and definitely Master Gardeners do, is just the wealth of information that we have. And this is a creative way of providing that information for your audience. So I do polls all the time. Of course, I'm sure that I have my experts on the side that can help me kind of, navigate and ask me questions component, but go on to Instagram, go on to the stories feature and kind of play around with these. And I promise you is going to increase your engagement. Thank you. Repurpose content. You don't have to create content specifically for social media, because that is actually very time consuming. So repurpose content from blogs, from newsletters, from events, and mold them to the different platforms that you're managing. For example, this is a tweet. I tweeted about this conference probably 4 times in a matter of 3 weeks. And this is something that came from a press release that was sent to me. I took information, I took the photo that they provided. The tweet itself, I didn't have to do that much work for because the information was just given to me. 35,000 impressions organically from this one tweet alone. Again, just look at what's out there already and see how you can use it for social media. And always, of course, keep the image in mind. Perfect. And run campaigns. Campaigns do very well. We tie them with pertinent hashtags. Do Earth Week. Well, I've seen a lot of pollinator weeks, so I think everyone's doing a great job with that. And I've been sharing that, but it allows you, first of all, to take a break from just kind of like these solo posts. And it also gives you the opportunity to be creative with the graphics, it's an opportunity to see what your partners are doing, what your competitors are doing for these campaigns. So I highly encourage you, again, go back to that calendar and plug in when the big campaigns are coming for the year so you know how to prepare. And then in terms of content gathering, leverage field days. If you know that you have a big event, for example, and you're focused on getting or doing social media coverage for that event, keep in mind that you can also gather materials for posts in the upcoming weeks. If I'm, at an event at a strawberry field, for example, for UPick, I cover what's going on that day, and I bring with me photos and videos that I can repurpose at a later time. And that's really going to help you kind of like not feel overwhelmed that you have to produce everything on a single day, or you have to make a special trip to a location. Just try to expand. Remember, you really need just one strong image for these posts, and you can kind of stretch that out a bit. Diversified content, add recipes. You could do short recipes on these videos from the produce that you're growing. Do other garden-related topics. You don't have to stick only to the work that you're doing. That's going to help you in terms of thinking of the content that you're putting out there. Advanced slide, please. I didn't talk much about Hootsuite and Sprout. They used to have a free version, and now they both have gone to full enterprise. So, it's something that you should consider if you have the funds, because it does help you in terms of analytics and posting, especially on weekends if you want to post ahead of time. But yeah, they're pretty pricey now. If you want more information about either of these, I can help you with that. Again, CANVA has really saved me in terms of being creative. I don't have a graphic designer. Everything you see coming from A&R is produced by me. I don't have a graphic background, and this is there is a paid version, but you can also work with the free version. They have photos, they have graphics, they have templates, they have already sized templates for each of the platforms. It really saves you time. I wouldn't be surprised if some of you are already working with that. And the Teamup calendar that I keep talking about is the one on your right-hand side. And as you can see here, the colors you see on the left are the individual calendars. I have one for Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, etc. I have one for my research. And then, I just plug them in. It's easy to move them. I open it daily to make sure that I'm posting what I'm supposed to be posting. And then I do an analysis each week and just check, okay, how much of this was too much gardening? How much of this was too much 4-H, and kind of just try to create a balance. Again, I'm providing the link to this. And in addition to the excellent resources that Melissa gave you, I want you to know that, that we also have social media resources, including policies on our main page. I'm also providing this link. This is something that I've only been here for about 5 months, so this is in process in terms of updating it, but there's so much information here, especially, when you don't know how to handle some difficult questions, there's some policies you could refer to. And again, if there's anything that you don't find here, please feel free to contact me. So I'm not sure if we're opening for questions yet, but thank you for giving me this time to share some of my best practices.
Dora, thank you so much for this content. I know I learned a lot, and Melissa, I think, commented early on in the chat that she learned something, which is amazing because Melissa is a marketing and communications specialist for our team. So thank you so much for sharing this this important content. We do have 10 minutes for questions, and then I'll share some concluding slides. So I wonder if maybe we had a little bit of technical difficulty with the sharing of slides at the beginning. I wonder if we can kind of stretch that to 12 minutes. We can keep you for another minute or two. So if folks on the call have questions for either Dora or Melissa, please, I think the way to do this might be to use the raise hand feature. So if you can see the raise hand feature that's available to you, that would be really helpful. You can also type in the chat if you have a question that you'd like to share. And if it's a little bit easier for us to ask you to unmute, we may have you do that for clarification. We have a question that just came in from Louise Bagone in Lake County. How can we attach the UCANR blog to our Facebook page? This might be something that's covered in that resources page that you shared. Dora, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, there's a way of doing that. And actually, would you mind emailing me and I could send you instructions to do that?
Louise says, certainly. Gail from Napa, I've just unshared that screen. I'm going to reshare it again when we get to our reminders. But yeah, we can certainly unshare now if folks, if folks want to be able to see each other as we go through these questions. A recommendation from Cleo in Sonoma, Zuhu Social, more affordable than Hootsuite. If you have any thoughts on that, Dora or Melissa, please feel free. And then we'll go to Aaliyah from Tulare Kings. So any thoughts on Zuhu Social?
I do just want to share that any software program that we purchase has to go through IT for review of security. So just make sure if you guys are going to use a software service that you have all of the approvals needed. Okay, good. Thanks, Cleo. She got it approved. So just double check that list or reach out to one of us and we'll connect you to where to find that information.
Yeah. Great point, Melissa. IT's those policies, those security policies have become very rigorous. So it's important that we do check with CSIT. And great suggestion, Cleo. Let's go to Aaliyah. Do you want to unmute yourself?
Can I say something to Cleo as well?
Oh, please. Yeah, go ahead, Dora.
Yeah, and you know what, Cleo, in terms of the platform that you pick, I always say this, use what works for you. I personally love Sprout Social and Hootsuite, but if something else works for you and it's free, absolutely, a lot of these are just trying to compete with one another, so they're doing the same thing.
Thanks, Dora. Great point. We can all use different tools to get to the same end goal. Aaliyah, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I know I asked this question, I asked Dora and Melissa, I won't just clear it. I have Instagram account and I am main administrator. Now I have Master Gardener who will help me to run Instagram and Facebook. I cannot add her as another administrator on Instagram. I just can share my sign up information with her, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but I can add her as administrator or editor for Facebook.
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
You can add their personal profile as an administrator for Facebook, and unfortunately for Instagram, it's and that's why some folks do prefer having like a Hootsuite platform and so forth, because then that's how the team posts something. But really, you can provide them with the password for Instagram.
Okay, thank you.
Feel free to keep those questions coming in the chat or raise your hand if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask a question verbally, as Aaliyah just did. And thanks for that response, Dora.
I also want to say, I think I said this at the beginning of the presentation, but this is a lot of information, especially when I start talking about metrics and social strategy, et cetera. And it's not meant to be overwhelming, just so you maybe then, even after this webinar, think about it and say, well, you know what, maybe I do want to learn a little bit more about metrics. So feel free then to reach out. And then Melissa could decide if it's her or if it's me, but I'm willing to help and kind of help you navigate that.
Good point, Dora. And we will be sharing that dump of links that we referenced in the chat before we conclude this meeting, and it will be available in the description box of the YouTube video when it goes up. So question in the chat from Lamone in Shasta, is there a certain day of the week that's better to post? Dora, do you want to take that?
Yes, and that's where you actually need to listen to your community, right? Because it'll be different for somebody in Southern California, literally, than somebody in Northern California. So go on into Facebook Analytics and look at insights and look at the times that your users are on, and that'll be the best time for you to post. You do the same on Instagram. You go and it'll tell you. Just go on the app and it'll tell you when your audience is mostly connected, and that's when you want to post.
We have an appreciation from Ann Shellman and Stanislaus saying, it's great to know that I don't have to know everything. Yes, this is a lot of information, Ann,
yes.
So thank you for that. And then a question from Ann in San Mateo in San Francisco. Ann says, San Mateo and SF uses Constant Contact for a monthly newsletter to the public, but only 45% of the people actually open the newsletter. Is this normal? And then after this question, we'll go to Dan for a verbal question and then Rosalinda.
I want to jump in. Yeah. I'm sorry, Dora. I'm like blown away because 40% is an incredibly high open rate. So good job, Anne. The average in 2020 for the open rate, I had to look it up, is 18%. So you're more than double. So you're killing it. Yeah, you're doing a great job. I think 45% is wonderful. I wouldn't worry about everyone having to open it. You guys are already killing or doubling what the average is.
Yeah, we both had exactly the same reaction.
Like, whoa.
I would love to see 45% in some of mine.
Right.
Well done, Anne. That question turned into just everyone being amazed by whatever it is that you're doing. So maybe if you have ideas, you can join that Facebook group for social media managers and share what you're doing to actually get that open rate so high. So let's go to Dan, and Dan can go ahead and unmute and ask a question, and then we'll go to Rosalinda. It looks like you're still muted, Dan.
Hi, Dan Vieira, Sacramento County. I was curious, you mentioned Instagram has a poll. You can set up polls. Does Facebook have one? I've never encountered one.
Yeah, you could also do a poll on Facebook, but Facebook polls are not as popular, honestly. So I think you're going to invest more time on Facebook. It's not going to give you that return on investment like Instagram will.
Okay.
So the polls work very well on Twitter and on Instagram.
Great question, Dan. And then we'll go to Rosalinda. Rosalinda's in Merced Stanislaus. You can go ahead and unmute and ask your question.
Hi. So my question is, earlier in the presentation, I heard Dora say that you shouldn't use the word click because that throws you down the line basically.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times with our posts and our content, we're trying to get people to look at our websites, to look at our, you know, like our other content, to guide them to go somewhere else. So what are some alternative ways that we can guide them without using that kind of word or those words that will still keep us, you know, relevant?
So yeah, that's a great question. So RSVP, let's say if it requires an RSVP, that one's actually not a bad one. They won't hide it there. So I use RSVP a lot. Sometimes I use just more, and especially with Instagram. I do the it also works for Facebook and for Twitter, of course, but I do the emojis that have like an arrow, so that catches folks' attention to the link without actually saying click here. So use emojis, use RSVP, you could use more, but if you really want somebody to pay attention to that website, also keep your text short, so that it doesn't drown in, you know, some folks don't open the entire post. And if you have that URL down in the text, they won't see it unless they open the post, especially for Facebook. Right. So keep that short.
And can I ask a follow-up question? So the follow-up question is, if we use, because when you talked about CANVA, I use CANVA a lot for creating content. And I absolutely love it. You can really follow like with theme colors and like a flow, so it's visually more appealing. And this is specifically for Instagram. So if we enter the word click, because there's, you know, like GIFs or animations that you can add to your visual, to your picture, so that it grabs the attention. Does that have the same effect as if you enter the word on the caption of the picture?
No, the algorithm is focused on the text that you're writing on the post, but not on a graphic. Okay,
so we can still put link in bio in the graphic, flashing, because what I got, maybe you want to check out our page, Master Gardeners for Business Laws. Okay, thank you. That was my, those were my 2 questions.
Yeah, that's a good follow-up. Thank you.
Melissa makes a point in the chat talking about accessibility, and this is a kind of a little preview of our digital inclusion webinar that we mentioned at the beginning of today's presentation. For accessibility, try to limit the number of emojis, maybe 1 or 2, and place them at the end of the post. That can make it easier for folks that are using screen readers to access the content. So great point, Melissa. I hadn't thought about that.
Absolutely.
This brings us up to 102. I'm going to share my screen again and share just a few brief reminders that will mostly be relevant to the staff on the call. So for those who are volunteers, please stick around, because we're going to drop the Word document of all of the links that we mentioned into the chat so that you can save that to your desktop in just one moment. But I'm going to share some reminders for our staff on the call. So our statewide brown bag and events calendar, we've had a lot of content this year, and we're going to give a little bit of a break during the summer months, but we do have an exciting webinar that's going to be put on by the director of the Academic Staff and Assistance Program, Rob Starkey, who is a psychologist, a therapist, and he's going to talk about managing volunteers and educating the public in times of grief. So he's not going to have a lot of content to share. This is a kind of a discussion style webinar where you'll be invited to bring your questions about tackling challenging topics like wildfire and climate change, especially in communities that have been heavily impacted by these natural disasters and events. So please join that webinar and bring your questions for Rob. We're really excited to have his participation. Of course, also we have a webinar on September 8th. This is our second annual of the 2 webinars that we do each year on program evaluation. Best practices in program evaluation are changing all the time, but our commitment to doing program evaluation is ever present. So please join that webinar to hear from Dr. Tamika Wilkins about our evaluation processes. And then save the date for October 7th for our annual meeting. So this is the day that we spend usually all together somewhere in the state of California, but we're going to be spending it on Zoom. I believe I shared the incorrect date, and I apologize for that during our last webinar with Kelly, who was talking about endowments. View that on our YouTube channel if you didn't get a chance to to view that. But our annual meeting is going to be on October 7th. Please save 9 to 3 on that day. Don't worry, we won't be on Zoom that entire time period. We'll build some breaks in there, but that should be a really great webinar. We're going to have a great state of the program address from our director, Missy Gable, and a couple of other speakers as well. A few reminders, reappointment is happening. In fact, I heard from San Diego yesterday that they have finished with reappointment. So I'm just like totally amazed by Scott Parker. This is his last year with our program as he's headed into retirement. And yeah, what a way to close out his long career with UC, finishing reappointment before even the end of June. So that's pretty amazing. All of those resources, of course, are on the Master Gardener Coordinator website. Again, we have our volunteer selection resources that are up on the website as well. I do want to mention that I've had to make a couple of changes to the application, and I posted to CT yesterday about this. The gender options were not as written in the UCOP policy and UCANR memo, so I had to update those. And I've just communicated with Rachel from legal, and she is going to update those on the UC Master Gardener Program policy handbook website as well. So I'll post to CT when that is updated. But if you've downloaded that document, please go back to our website and download the appropriate document. And then when I link to the appropriate one in CT, you'll be able to update any links that you have on your website. So I apologize for that. We really want to make sure that those gender options are in line with our policy. And then finally, really exciting news that just came out this week, the 2019-2020 impact report is now available. There's a direct link to it that maybe Melissa can drop into the chat for me if you don't mind. But this is really exciting. It summarizes the impact during our 2019 and 2020 years, and that includes all of the incredible work that's been done by Gardeners with Heart and volunteers in general during this COVID-19 period. It's a really, really heartwarming and exciting story of our program statewide. Physical copies are currently in print, and if you filled out, Master Gardener coordinators, if you filled out the survey, or maybe it wasn't a survey, you just needed to respond to Melissa with the number of physical copies that you wanted, those are in print, and we're going to be mailing them during the summer of 2021. So that's very, very exciting. What a great tool to be able to talk to your community partners, to your local board of supervisors, to prospective volunteers about what our program's about. So very excited to have that document in hand and online. And so it's available for folks to view at this point online as well. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and just offer thanks to Dora for joining us today. Thanks to Melissa for joining us today. This social media content has never been more relevant. As you pointed out at the beginning of the presentation, clicks through our social media offerings have been really accelerated during this year. So thanks for everything that folks on this call and folks not on this call have done to produce some really good resources for gardeners in the state of California. So much appreciation to all of you.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys.